Well, first of all, with the Zimmerman case itself, that's going back 7 or 8 years ago now. I mean, that not only did it polarize the country, but it really focused the country on problems that are inherent in the criminal justice system. And I've been fighting for that for 30 years, because when you do criminal defense, you're representing people who are in the system who are having those biases and those implicit biases and prejudices visited upon them. So, we know that the criminal justice system, as is society as a whole, slanted against particularly young Black males. That's just an undeniable reality that we're dealing with. So now we, fast forward from the Zimmerman case, where, a lot of people, me included, thought, okay, at the very least, that case brought out of the shadows and into the forefront these biases. Now, the Zimmerman case was not sort of the poster child for the way some old white guy just killed a Black kid, the way some people have presented it. But nonetheless, it did present the issues that exist in the criminal justice system. It actually spawned Black Lives Matter as a movement. And you would think that 8 years ago that we would have learned more, quite honestly, that we would have kept it in the public eye. And I'll give you an example. If you look from any of the cases that happened since, from Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, Walter Scott, Tamir Rice, and dozens of others, we haven't learned, it seems, that as a society, we haven't learned that there are biases in the system and in society that we have to deal with. Use that as the context for what you asked, which is, now what are you going to do with the Ahmaud Arbery case, the Brooks case, and the Floyd case, of the death of Mr. Lloyd? What do you do about that? I actually believe, and I know other people have said maybe now's the time, but we said that was the time with Eric Garner. We said that was the time with Tamir Rice. But it really seems like there has been, in fact, a sea change in the past several weeks, mainly because of the video of George. You look at that video and say, 8 minutes and 46 seconds of intentional killing. And it really seems as though we have just maybe finally taken that extra step of making it mainstream. And the hopes are that now that it is on everybody's consciousness, that we're actually going to do more about it.
And do you feel that maybe the pandemic and the environment that we're in, I've thought about this a lot, that there's more people now that were just home, that are unemployed, that are watching TV, that the protests and the things that have happened, it's like we're living a slower lifestyle. And it's made us slow down and really think about the civil justice system and what's going on. And do you think that factors into this at all?
I think it does. I mean, the social scientists might have their own insight on what it means, but I see it a couple of folds. One, certainly exactly what you said. People are available more to listen or to see, right? So like with me and with you, right. you work your every day, you're working 10, 12 hours, you don't really have enough, you catch news on the way home. But now all of a sudden we have a much higher percentage of the population that literally is, hunkering down at home. Right. And they're turning on the TV. So in that sense, yes, I think that now that they have the opportunity to look, they are looking more. But there's something else about the pandemic that I think has some impact on it. And that is, our stress level is heightened. If you think about it, 10, 15, 20% higher stress. They say that a rising tide raises all ships, or whatever that is. Well, that's what's happening with our stress level, right? So now if you have that stress level, it's already heightened. And then you add to it what's happened to George Lloyd and Floyd and other cases like that, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. Now all of a sudden that stress lays on top of another level of stress, the pandemic. And I think that's what we're seeing the whitecaps of. I think that's why people are sitting going, I'm tired of the pandemic, but my God, I'm really tired of this. Right. And they then have time to respond, to tweet about it, to get on Facebook, to watch the news. And I think that's helping that tidal change we just talked about, of actually looking at it going, we got to figure this out. And now that you're actually taking a breath and having time to look at it, people are reacting.
Now, are you still handling, I think, obviously the case that was your famous case was you were on the defense side for George Zimmerman, but tell us like what your practice looks like now for the attorneys out there who may have a case they want to send over to you. What are you specializing in?
Yeah, the local practice is still wrapped around criminal defense and some family law. I've got a couple of associates on either of that. That's sort of the local. But what my real heart is into right now is the civil rights cases. And those are the cases where normally law enforcement has caused some damage. I've got a case right now we're about to sue because my guy who had some slight mental health concerns was ignoring a cop. No danger, no threat. But he was going towards his car. The cops wanted him to stop. They didn't. They put like 13, 14 bullets into his car and paralyzed him. Totally unnecessary. We're going after them right now. As you know, I represented Matthew Ajibade, a Black 20-year-old college student that was brought into the Savannah County Jail or Chatham County Jail and beat and killed. Sam DuBose up in Cincinnati, 40-year-old in his 40s, Black guy, stopped by a University of Cincinnati police officer, ended up shooting and killing him. Right now, we just got involved.
So your practice is really a national practice. So the attorneys that we have listening are all over the country. Yes. So that's nice to know that if they do have a case. Now, would you ever co-counsel with an attorney who's interested in, some of the attorneys may ask, like, oh, how do I get involved in the civil rights cases? They're so high profile. Is there a way that I can, refer to Mark, but yet still co-counsel with him or learn from him?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I do is normally people will call me, whether it's the families who reach out or other attorneys and say, I have this. It needs to get some traction, needs to get some attention, needs to get some expertise. So I've got a number of cases. Actually, I think every one of my cases right now on the national level, I have local counsel with, and either I've been brought in for them or they've brought me in one way or the other, or I've, sort of negotiated with them. So absolutely, because these cases do take it's a recipe. You have to have a good case. You have to have liability, of course, but you also have to be able to get it out there in the public view because,
And that's where they can use your publicity, your whole, MO and the CNN consultant and you're on the news and really get it publicized. I know Benjamin Crump, and he does a lot of that as well, where he's going to partner with somebody and then he can come to the forefront and really get it to the news it seems like a lot of these cases are now tried on the news. When you look at the video as a lawyer, you think, how is there ever, this is the question I have, and I know a lot of the other attorneys do, how are you ever going to be impartial on a jury and you walk in and see these, and is it possible for any of the police officers to have a fair trial when this video is circulating, and how would that even work?
It's difficult. If you think about it, with the way the country is polarized with the Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case, how do we ever pick a jury on that? You can pick a jury in most jurisdictions. You can get people who will probably come in without their minds made up. But I agree with you, it is much more difficult in the environment that we're in today to try and figure out how to do that right, how to do it in a way that's going to get a fair result. Because 20 years ago, 15 years ago, cops were given the default position. Almost anything they did was acquiesced to or was okay. And now I think the pendulum has swung back the other way, where we're looking at cops going, wait a minute, what's up with the chokehold? What's up with the taser? What's up with this?
What's so interesting? Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry. I just remembered at that MLK conference, do you remember there was an entire panel on the body camera, right? And this was 5-6 years ago, the debate was there, and there's still jurisdictions that don't even have them. So
there are too many that don't have it. My opinion, and look, I represent a couple of cops right now. I think they're great people. I would not want to strap on a gun and a badge and maybe get killed when I go to work every day. I get that, but we are in a society now where body cameras cost $100, $200, less than a gun. If you're going to put a gun on, put on a body camera, because we know they haven't done everything I thought they would do, but we know they help. And we know if some cop knows he's got a body camera on, or she, then they're probably going to act a little bit better. And here's the other thing, it's impartial. They're going to show what they're reacting to as well. So body cameras should be mandatory throughout the country. It is
Right. It
absurd
protects the
that we get
officer
without
who
a
wears it. I mean, that's their story, right? That's their version of the story. So, and I remember that was a big debate. We had the whole panel, and that was, a few years after you represented Zimmerman, and it was so topical then, and we were so, all the lawyers were so passionate about making the changes and doing something, and the news was there, and and then it just fizzled into something else. And
yeah.
it's,
We're
it's
still
aware, it's just, we became complacent, which is unfortunate.
Mark, knowing what you know now and everything that's been going on in the world, would you do it again, and what would you do differently?
Nothing. Yes and nothing. I mean, it's an easy answer. Would I do it again? For a couple of reasons. One, it's what I do. I mean, I do criminal defense work. That's part of what I do. So the idea of saying to me, well, would you represent him because it was highly publicized, or because it divided the nation, or whatever else? I will tell you, and it sounds a little bit egoist, the way that I looked at that case and the way I handled it, and the effort that I put into trying to be as even-handed as I could be, while still zealously representing George Zimmerman, because that's really my only task under the Constitution. I think we as a team, we had a lot of people helping, we as a team handled it as good as we could have. We respected all sides of the argument as best we could. So I would definitely have done it looking back, and I would not have changed very much at all, because I think the outcome could only have been worse if people, quite honestly, who are less sensitized to the social pressures that were at play, someone who is not quite aware of that, could have devastated the country a lot more than we did getting an acquittal.
Piggybacking off of that, when you took on the case, how did it affect you personally and your family, because that is such a high profile, controversial case?
A lot more than I thought it was going to, because don't forget, when I first got involved in the case, it had regional attention, local and regional, no national really. But then literally the day I got involved is when they indicted him or charged him, and things just blew up. I will never forget walking out of my little cottage office after I announced that I was representing him. There was no less than 75 or 100 reporters in this semicircle around my door, 12 or 15 satellite trucks. And for the 20 months that that case lasted, there was never less than 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 reporters at my office 10 hours a day. They would wait outside, they would come in the lobby. So it really changed my life completely. And it was a little frightening at times. We had about 2,500 what Homeland Security and the Sheriff's Office considered legitimate threats against me or the team, because yes, protect your right to have a gun. You had, of course, the Black community who saw yet another young Black male shot while he was unarmed. So there was a lot of that was happening, and it all sort of visited itself upon George Zimmerman, and therefore me, just by connection, and I represented him. So yeah, there was it was scary and some dangerous times there for a while, because the passions were running so high.
But you would do it again, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, without question. Now,
yeah.
Let me. Now I have to be a lawyer. Would I take? Yeah, I would do it again, but I would hope that we are in a slightly different environment, that we would look at that. Because I've always said, look, if you want me to tell you a dozen of my clients for whom the focus of national attention should be on the injustices of the criminal justice system, I have a dozen, 2 dozen, 100. It's just that the facts of the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case did not support actively that type of real aggressive, obvious prejudices within the system. The facts that showed out was George focused on him. Yes. Was he doing something wrong? Who knows? Did he call the cops? Yes. Was there a fight? Yes. Was George's head bounced off concrete? Yes. Did he shoot him once in the chest? Yes. Was he on top of him when he got shot? Yes. So, but there are so many more. Look at
that's
today. The Floyd case. There's no explanation for why that happened. Look at some of these, the Ahmaud Arbery case. Oh my God, that was.
But I mean, so I guess I have a really good spin-off question from this. So if there's an attorney out there, and there is right now, who's sitting, listening to this in their living room and saying, I have a case that tops all of those cases, and it's not getting, like you're saying, there's, dozens of other clients who don't get that kind of attention. What does this attorney do to try to spark that attention? Or is it something that you think maybe shouldn't get, maybe the case is better served not getting public attention? I mean, what are your thoughts on the lawyer sitting out there who may have a case similar to some of these recent cases and doesn't know what to do with it? Do they go get the publicity, or do they keep it more on the down low?
Well, it's really a complex question, because part of what, because I train lawyers on how to work with the media. And on criminal defense lawyers, my first advice is don't go anywhere near the media.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Media does not help a criminal defense case ever, because you don't want light shined upon your case necessarily, because you're trying to work it through the system, trying to minimize damage to your client. And if you have a good defense, present it to the prosecutor subtly. Having said that, on the individual case, yes, it is better to stay away from the media and try and work your case through. But if the media has already visited itself upon you, then you have to know how to handle it. And more importantly, and this is one thing that Ben Crump does, you might get justice on the individual case, staying out of the media or doing whatever you can to settle the case. But if you're looking to try and change the trajectory of the criminal justice system, you will not accomplish that focusing solely on the case. You have to focus on the societal problems and the systemic prejudices that exist in the criminal justice system. And the only way you get that done is by utilizing the media. And that's what Ben has been so good at.